had this vision in the book he wrote, The Call, and he saw heaven, and the Father was sitting on the throne in heaven, and he silenced all the angels and all of what was going on, and the Father reached and opened up the sky, and he pointed down at this little church meeting in the middle of the woods somewhere in China. It was a secret church gathering. Many of them had been persecuted, and they had snuck their way out into the woods to worship the Lord. And the Father stopped all of heaven to hear their worship. And he said to the angels, they're giving me something right now. They're giving me something right now that you can't give when you're up here. That makes my heart want to bleed with worship, yeah. That makes me want to give every breath to him, not out of some religious pressure, but because I can't help it. I don't fast because I have to fast to get his smile. I fast because he is smiling over me, and I get to have more of him. I don't pray because I have to pray. I pray because I want to be changed. It's not changing him. It's changing me. My heart's bleeding with it. I can't help but worship. I've seen his smile, and I want to give him my life. That's what Mary was doing that day. She was giving this man named Jesus her life. Some people say that the perfume that was in her bottle was her wedding dowry that she would give to her husband. So she was surrendering her security. In those days, a woman's security was in finding a man. She was radically cutting away what the world said security was. And she said, this man is my security because I've never seen eyes like his. I've never seen a smile like his. I want to waste my life at his feet. Religion will always question worship. The disciples began to question. They didn't know what spirit they were in. They began to question. We could have taken that and done something good with it. We could have taken the perfume, sold it, and done something good with it. Good is always the enemy of the Father's best. I mean, sure, they could have sold it, fed the poor with it. But the Father's purpose and the Father's story in that moment was that we would be talking about this worship right now. And it would cause our hearts to so bleed with love for him. We wouldn't just give money to the poor, but we would give our lives to the poor the way he gave himself to us. We would be his hands to the poor. We would be his voice to the poor. He would be inside of us, loving through us. Because we would want to love the way Mary loved. Isn't that awesome? If I came in here with a suitcase and I opened it up and there was 120,000 dirhams in it, and I said, hey guys, we're going to make a burnt offering to Jesus today. And I lit up the suitcase with a match. How many of you would be freaking out? That's what the disciples were like, oh my gosh. This is radical. Why this waste? Jesus' response is, she has done something beautiful for me. Oh, I just want to hear God say that to me. I mean, that's like my highest goal when I walk off the stage after leading worship is to hear the Father say, that was beautiful, son. I mean, you guys are great. Hearing encouragement from y'all is good, but nothing compares to hear him say, that touched me. That moved my heart. You know, they're paving streets in heaven with gold. So when we give an offering here, I don't think we're going to be giving our tithes and offering in heaven. You know, what we do, put like gold bricks in the basket when they pass it around. Here, God, here's some pavement. But when we give here, it has cost. It has value attached to it. In heaven, money will have no value because he will be our treasure. But on this earth, who is our treasure? When you give and when you radically give, you're saying, I want to give you something now that I couldn't give you when I'm there. You can't give him your life in heaven. All there is life. You will live forever when you're there, but now you can give him your life. You guys get what I'm saying? We can touch heaven right now in a way. We can touch his heart right now in a way. In these 70 years we've been given, we can touch him in a way we can't touch him when we're there. Listen to what Jesus says about Mary's perfume. He says, when she poured the perfume on my body, she did it to prepare me for burial. Have you ever thought about the aroma of Mary's worship that surrounded the Son of God on the greatest 3 days of history? That oil that Mary poured on him, you know, Jesus didn't have these fancy shampoos we have now. And after the meeting, he didn't go home and shower up. That perfume stayed in the hair of Jesus. Have you ever got oil in your hair? One time I prayed for my wife and I poured a whole bottle of oil in her hair. She almost killed me. She had to take 7 showers to get the oil out of her hair. I did it, just the whole bottle, just dumped it on her head. It was awesome in the moment. But the 7th shower later, it wasn't awesome. Okay, so Jesus says to Mary, she's done this to prepare me for burial. So Jesus had this fragrance in his hair. It was on his body when the whips came down on his back and his flesh was ripped open. The perfume, he smelled Mary with him. When they spit on his face and the saliva mixed with the perfume in his hair, and the saliva of those Roman guards came down his face, the saliva of hatred was mixed with the perfume of adoration, and all he smelled was Mary's worship. When they drove nails in his hands, I still think oil was there, and the oil of Mary's worship mixed with the blood of a lamb. Think about what hell smelled when Jesus came walking through. Mary's worship went to hell with Jesus. And then he stops on his way from hell to heaven to do the most important thing God has ever done, rescue us. And he stops in a garden to see this woman. And then he goes to the Father. And I got this beautiful picture of when he gets in heaven. The Father goes, what's that smell? What's that smell, Jesus? We don't make perfume like that here. And Jesus looks at the Father and says, that's the fragrance of true worship from the heart. The perfume she gave to me on earth, they don't make here in heaven. Mary has done a beautiful thing for me. And everywhere this gospel is preached, they're going to talk about this worship she gave. It's mind-blowing, huh? I want to talk a little bit about Cain and Abel, just for a minute. It's Genesis 4. You guys, I'm sure, know this story. But I'm just going to read a little bit of it. Adam lay with his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. She said, "With the help of the Lord, I've brought forth a man." Later, she gave birth to his brother Abel. Now, Abel kept flocks, and Cain worked the soil. So that's important. Cain worked the soil, and Abel kept the flocks. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord. But Abel brought fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked down with favor on Abel and his offering. But on Cain and his offering, he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. Okay, you guys know the story from there. Cain is ridden with jealousy, and he kills his brother Abel. So, the first murder on the earth was around the issue of worship. Just from me traveling around the world and observing church, I think the most warfare, the most tension I see is around the area of worship in church. There's a lot of church splits just because of worship. That's not my style. Or that's not how we do it. This started like 3,500 years ago. 4,000 years ago, however old this earth is, with Cain and Abel.